Good afternoon. This is Mental Health Live with Musawo Justine Nakimuli Kigozi. Welcome. This Sunday, we are doing our live a bit early. I'm sorry for those who have missed it because we normally do it at 6 o'clock and we are doing it at 12. That's because I had to have a journey to London to be able to meet up with our special guest today. Thank you very much for loving Mind, Body and Soul. Thank you for following Mind, Body and Soul, and we really appreciate you. This afternoon, we've got a special guest. As you all know, this month has been a month of teenagers. We are talking about development. We are talking about growing up. In the diaspora, we are talking about mental health and well-being in the diaspora. Just to recap, the first month, we spoke about the physiological and psychological changes that can happen in teenagers while they are growing up in the diaspora. Thank you very much for those who have joined us. Please share with friends so we can all come together to engage in this wonderful topic. We then had a gentleman who had grown up in the diaspora in the 80s and were making comparisons of things that are happening in the diaspora this time and what was happening in the 90s. So this afternoon, we are privileged to host one of the gentlemen who has lived in the diaspora for a very long time, and he will be with us this afternoon talking about mental health and well-being in the diaspora, gang lifestyle, culture identity, and giving some advice to parents out there on how we can actually stop these overwhelming statistics. Our children have become part of statistics. Black and ethnic minority children are overwhelmingly in prisons. There is an overwhelming number in mental health institutes, and we need to work on how we can deal with this. Thank you very much. This afternoon, I'm pleased to welcome Mr. Kape Michael and Okello, who will join me on the hot seat this afternoon.
Thank you, Justina.
This is Mr. Kape, Mr. Michael Kape. Michael.
Yes.
Introduce yourself to the viewers and tell us how long you've been in the diaspora for, what you do, and if you belong to any organizations. Nothing political about organizations.
I'm not very political.
Very good.
My name is Michael Kape Okello. I've actually been in diaspora in the UK, I beg your pardon, for like 31 years.
Can you move a bit closer?
Move a bit closer to you?
Yeah, that's better. Yeah.
I've been in the UK for 31 years. I came in 9th October 1989. I remember the day because it was Ugandan independence. And I've survived in the UK, and I currently work as an IT test consultant. And I've been doing that for the last 15 years. I've been lucky enough to be settled in this country now.
All right. Cultural identity is very close to my heart, as the social factors of mental illness identify society and the communities around us. Michael, which area in Uganda are you from?
I'm from northern Uganda.
Okay.
I'm an Acholi who never grew up in Gulu. I grew up mainly in Kampala, although I don't speak any Luganda. Okay.
And do you speak Acholi?
I just speak Acholi. It has improved a lot. It improved more when I was in the UK than when I was in Uganda.
Okay. Can you greet our viewers in Acholi?
Kobango.
And would you answer, is it Kope? Or?
You answer Kope, yes.
Great. So, when you relocated from Uganda to the UK, how old were you? What were you coming to do in Uganda? And which thing in UK, and what changed when you arrived?
I'm a special case. I was coming here to study, and I came as a surprise. So I came to do my A-levels.
Okay.
So it was a very sudden change. It just happened overnight.
Okay.
And I discovered that came back home one day. I was told to pack my bags. You're going to England.
How did that feel?
I was a bit nervous because I knew I had to come and do an interview. And I previously had come to the UK, done an interview at a certain school. and I had not been successful because my English, I think they told my parents that they had issues with my English.
Okay. So, within a night, you had to pack your bags and move to the UK.
Yeah.
Culturally, how did that affect you as a person? Because one day you're experiencing Ugandan culture, which is totally different. And then one night, you're obviously experiencing the Western culture. And a lot of people define culture shock around that time. How did that make you feel, just quickly moving into the UK?
Initially, there was excitement. You're going somewhere new. Everyone wants to come to the UK. And then you have once your parents have gone back and you're living by yourself, I think that's when the loneliness sets in. You have no one you can relate to. And then you're also trying to break into and make friends in a new area, a new environment where you don't really know a lot of people. So that can be very, very hard for a lot of people. And I'll say, I tried my best, made a few friends, but they mainly tended to be black African people from within the same school.
Did that make you feel as if you choosing black African people, you're creating some sort of gang, or you're cocooning yourself into these people that you feel you can identify with?
I think it was, I was looking for people I can relate to. I was looking to people I could relate to because there's a very big culture shock when you go to your white friends' homes and they're calling their parents by their first name. Those are things that I wasn't really used to. So it was easier to relate to the black people than to the white people.
So in your group, as black people, did you used to go to the same school?
I made friends initially with people from the same school.
Yeah. What sorts of pressures? I know one young person has spoken to me about accents in school and you being different. What sort of pressures did you feel moving into that school straight away from Uganda?
Well, to be honest, the biggest problems were accent. Although we speak English, their English was different. So it was trying to understand them and also get them to understand me. A lot of times you try and fill in the gaps when they're talking. So you had to develop a thick skin and be brave enough to ask them, could you please repeat that? Or could tell them that, can you talk slowly? So I think the biggest issue was the change in the accents.
Wow. For those who have just joined us, we're just talking about the overwhelming culture change that happens when our children immigrate from other countries. It can be Zimbabwe, it can be South Africa, it can be anywhere, into the UK, and how different those things can be. Kape Michael was just talking about the culture change, the overwhelming things that happen to him, wanting to relate to other people, going into other people's homes and actually realizing that his culture is totally different from these people. And these are things that our young people identify today. Michael Kape, did something happen to you psychologically, or have you identified people who have struggled with this change? And I'm a psychiatric nurse by background, and we get overwhelming depressive symptoms. People have been depressed, people who have been suicidal, but because they don't understand what's happening to them, they start to self-harm. Some of them commit suicide. Did you experience any of that, or did you hear about any of that when you came to the UK?
I would not say that. I think we dealt with things differently being boys. I would not say that I know of any self-harm or suicidal behavior. Rather, we went down the route of drinks. So, in time, a lot of people resorted to drinking alcohol. And then you have the problems with alcohol as well, fighting and everything. And then just forming little cliques. At the time, we never called them gangs at all. We never referred to ourselves as gangs. It was just a little clique. You just had a little group of friends. And you did everything together. And you carried on that kind of... Because a clique is like a family, you supported each other, you looked after each other's backs.
That's absolutely true, because the gangs these days, they call themselves blood. and to them that is family. They are supporting each other.
Yeah.
But while you guys created those family felt environments where you supported each other and you probably rang each other to say, are you okay, or I'm coming to see you, the gangs this time are taking it to the next level. How has that changed? Why are people going to the next level?
I wouldn't say they're going to the next level. They're still looking for the same thing. We were looking for, what do you find in a family? You're looking for comfort, you're looking for peace, you're looking for someone to stand besides you, to stand for you, and to support you. So, looking back, that is what we were looking for within our friends, because we didn't have our families here. So I think the gangs at the moment, the kids in the gangs are looking for the same thing. They're looking for that sense of belonging.
Thanks for joining us, people who are joining us. Thanks for viewing. Thanks for following our program. Michael is saying that children out there, when they arrived in the UK, most of them came to the UK with no family. So, for example, he came to join a college. A-level, was it?
Yeah,
he came to join a college, and he left his parents in Uganda. But the children these days that we are talking to, Michael, actually are born here. Some of them are born here. Some of them have come here at a very young age. So they're still children, and they are living with their parents. So if they are joining gangs to find a sense of belonging, to find comfort, what is happening in our family environment in the diaspora that is missing that gap for the children to feel comforted, to feel loved, to feel at home? And they are looking out there for these gangs to, to give them that homely feeling.
Well, look at it this way. I consider myself to be 16, 17 years mentally behind my peers in the UK. So the parents of the children, whatever age they came, they don't know what their children are experiencing in their formative years.
Okay.
Whereas in Uganda, my parents knew and experienced the same experiences during their formative years. So they're able to provide that support till I was 16 years old. But when I came over here, 16 going on to 17 years old, system was totally different. So the challenges I'm facing at school and the challenges I'm facing with life in general are totally different from the challenges my parents would have faced. So there's no one to guide me. So likewise, people who have come to this country who are older cannot relate to the issues their children are experiencing because they have not lived it.
Okay.
They have not lived that experience. And that is why I say that compared to someone who was born in this country, because I came later, I am actually mentally behind them when understanding the system and the problems, because they've lived through it, have not lived through it.
While if they visited Uganda, they would hardly understand what's happening in Uganda as well. So some of these parents have come to this country, and you've mentioned something small about the parents not living that experience. But are they also struggling to find grounds and balance these things that they don't understand because they've not lived this experience? I mean, I have children and they come home with mathematics, and the way they do it is totally different from what I did in Namgongo Primary or Maryhill High School. It's totally different. So what struggles are these parents finding in terms of understanding this system? Because there's a massive gap somewhere that we need to be able to support parents to bring together.
Well, the massive gap is, I think there are two systems. The system of life. The system of life that we have in Uganda provides parents with the time to spend with their children. The system of life we have in the UK does not give you that time.
Okay.
You're always in a rush, so you can spend on average 3 hours a day with your child. But in reality, you're only spending 20 minutes.
Okay.
Because in those 3 hours, you're busy doing other things. You're cooking, you're getting things ready. So you're only spending time with him for 20 minutes. The other 8 hours, you're both asleep in the house.
Wow.
You wake up in the morning, they go to school, you go to work, you come back. So the time, you don't have enough time to spend with your children. So there's that system of life which is totally different. So we don't have time for our kids. The next bit is the parents themselves are trying to adopt into a new system. So when the parents are trying to fit themselves in the UK kind of life, it becomes very hard to then transmit values and teach your children values. So the children then, obviously, you have a problem, you come and talk to your parents, they've never experienced it, they cannot help you. So what do? You're spending 3 hours a day with your parents, 8 hours a day at school. In between, you're meeting friends, and they become your support network. Your family, they're there, but they're not there. They're just there physically. But they cannot form a support network because there's just not enough time for that.
Wow. That's interesting. For those who have just joined us, thanks Christine Nama, my family. Thank you Senteza. Thank you Justine Kawesa. Thank you Perez. Thank you for joining us. Michael was just trying to explain, actually there's something that I've got out of this really. He says that the parents in the diaspora are struggling because they're trying to understand a system that they've not grown up into. They've come into, from Uganda. It's a totally different system. They then arrive here and they need to understand that system that, that they're working in, but also to help their children understand this system. And sometimes the children beat us to it because they understand it better than us.
Yes.
And he detailed something about parents not having time. Not having time for their children. And Christine says, makes so much sense, Michael. Parents do not have time for their children because they are running around trying to understand this system. And when the children come to talk to parents about their problems, the parents will not understand these problems because they've not lived them. And these are things that we see in mental health, quite a lot. Michael, do you think parents in the diaspora have a good understanding of mental health and well-being for the children? Because if the children have all these pressures, they are coming to download on the parents, but the parents cannot actually download. So it feels like if a child has a bucket full of water, brings it to mommy, hopes that mommy's going to create some holes for that water to overflow so the bucket is empty again, but actually brings it to mommy, but mommy cannot create any holes, or daddy, because they have no understanding of what is going on. How can we help these parents understand the system better? How can it work? How can we balance this? Is there a way we can help with this?
There is a way you can help with this. Helping yourself. I think the biggest problem we have is we don't understand depression. We don't understand mental health. Coming from Africa, you look at mental health as a stigma. A mental health patient is someone who resides in Butabika. Whereas the issues we start experiencing over here, we don't really know how to deal with it. So you have a parent who is maybe depressed, having to look after a child and guide a child. How would that work? It's almost like having a patient look after another patient.
Yeah.
So that's the biggest issue we've got. So a lot of parents have mental health issues themselves. And the problem with mental health is, the way I look at mental health is, it's a spectrum. So you can either fall off on one edge or the other edge. And majority of us just keep on bouncing from one end to the next, never dropping off. But there's a majority of parents very near the edge.
Surviving.
And that is a form of depression which they have not yet possibly accepted. Because before you become totally mentally ill, you're having to go through depression. You're on that edge, you're just about to drop off the cliff. So when you have,
which they call stress, because depression is the diagnosis of mental illness. But a lot of people, when you meet them, they're actually clinically depressed, but they're saying, I'm really stressed. I'm so stressed about this.
We use the word stress to refer to depression. We use the word stress as a coverall umbrella term to hide whatever mental issues or whatever emotional feelings we have or problems we're going through. Oh, I'm just stressed. Disadvantage is, if you're a man, you're going to go and drink. Probably go and smoke. If you're a woman, probably end up drinking, because now women in this country drink as well as men. Probably going to end up drinking, smoking. Your problem never goes away.
It remains.
All you do is just forget about it for that short period. Yet at the same time, your little child needs your attention. Now, if you're depressed yourself, you're already struggling, you cannot make the right decisions, you cannot see clearly.
Wow, wow. Welcome, Margaret Filling, and welcome, Nelson Mundy. Thanks for joining us. And Michael is just talking about the stresses that people, find in the diaspora, bringing up children. He just identified something that when a mom or a dad is stressed, it's like a patient looking after a patient, because you're only, threading those emotions down into your children. If you're stressed, you're angry, you're impulsive, you're kicking off all the time, the kids are not going to feel comfortable to come and speak to you about things that are happening in their lives. And we go back to what Michael mentioned in the beginning. They then go out there and try to find a family. They create a family of their own. And in most cases, this family can develop into a gang, because they need to have that sense of belonging. They need to feel listened to. They need to feel understood. And for parents in the diaspora as well, what we need to understand, Michael has just explained that we come into this system and we need to try and understand it. Then we have children in the system who actually understand the system better than us because they've grown up in the system. And then we don't understand the system because we have come into it. Michael, my biggest question is, I have met people here and they arrive in the UK and they have a red passport. And their first thing is, I'm British, I don't want anything to do with, Ugandans or Zimbabweans or people from Nigeria. I just a British person. And I struggle with it sometimes because, you can hold that passport, but you can never be English. So tell us about culture identity and how it can help your mental health and well-being.
Culture is very important, because what culture and culture identity does is it provides to you, it's more like having that overall wide family group, an extended family group. That's what culture does. So the people who come and declare themselves to just be British, remember when I say that some people still have depressive influences? I would look at those kind of parents and say they're actually depressed. Because by trying to deny who you are, that's a sign of depression. So they're actually depressed. Now, culture identity, when you belong to groups, I belong to, I wouldn't say I belong to, but I do attend lower culture group functions.
Okay.
So, because I'm in lower, I'm on a Charlie. So maybe twice a year, they showcase our traditional dances. You go there, you meet people, you speak. It's an opportunity to speak your language, practice speaking your language, meeting people. And just exchanging information. And you'd be surprised how powerful that is. One, is uplifting for the spirit. Two, you're bound to tell someone a problem that you're going through, which you more or less would not have told anyone else. But because you feel comfortable enough, you may tell them, and then you get a bit of advice back. Because one of the biggest problems we have is we are very afraid to express ourselves. And this country doesn't make it very, very easy. And that's why I say there's no support network. So when you belong to groups, it also has a downside. Because we're all suffering a certain degree of mental instability, let me put it that way. What happens is, when you join this kind of groups, you have those little frictions in there as well. And those little frictions can sometimes increase the pressures on you. But I would say you're better in than out.
Okay.
Because once you're within part of one of these groups, you have somewhere you can go. Another problem that we don't really admit in this country is loneliness. And that is where these cultural groups do help.
Okay. Right, so while talking about culture groups and sharing is caring, Michael just mentioned that it's important to belong somewhere. And we were talking about the fact that some people come into this country and they don't want to relate to anybody in their cultural background or in their race. But Michael was just identifying that it's important. You don't have to relate to the whole group, but you must have someone you share these notions with, these problems with, these difficult moments with. You cannot be a bottle of Coke, because when you're a bottle of Coca-Cola, it pops. It can only hold enough, and if you're not sharing, you're likely to pop, and it's not a good thing. So for those of you who do not want to identify with your culture, whether you're from South Africa, Zimbabwe, Uganda, Nigeria, and you think, do you know what, I do not want to know who I am. Again, my friend here just says that actually that's a sign of depression, because you don't want to be who you are. Try and be who you are. Start to love who you are, and then you can pass that on down to your children. They might start to love themselves. They might start to share, to identify themselves with that culture. Because again, when we go back to mental health and well-being, social inclusion is a massive thing. Social inclusion is, your community that you relate to, your religious needs that you relate to, the food that you eat, society, how you get included in society. That's important. And we've just heard it today when Michael was saying, try to identify with, your culture. You go to a social gathering and you listen to your home music, you speak your language, you see people from your community. In mental health, when we are treating mental health, there is a care plan for social inclusion, because it's important, because it's available for people to use. Michael, looking at the generation today, again, there's a massive increase in knife crime at this moment in time. Why is it? Why is it knives? What is the love? What is this addiction with young people? Because you've said in the past you used to have groups that you looked at as family, and you shared, and you probably went to somebody's house and they cooked food and you ate and you had a party, you drank and went back home.
Yes.
Why is it these days that in every gathering, 6 out of 10 gatherings, there's a stabbing? What is it with the infatuation with knives?
Poor parenting is number one. Let's be very, very honest. Poor parenting is number one. Number two, we have to understand one thing. Children are very fearless. Children are very fearless. So if you don't teach them to have a little bit of reserve, then they'll go on to things to the extreme, because they're not really aware of the full consequences of their actions. And I think the biggest failing with knives is just a coincidence that knives are easily available everywhere. It's become the weapon of choice because of simple access.
Okay, so knives are simply accessible. Every kitchen has knives, anyone can access knives at this moment in time. And I know that not everybody who stabs somebody is mentally unwell, but a lot of them have psychological, challenges and psychological problems. Some of the things that we have identified, parents are not available, parents are struggling to understand the system, bringing up children in the system, and it's quite difficult. But we are identifying certain things that can help. Social inclusion, making sure that your children are included in the community, that your children are known in the community. If you come in, from an environment and, your neighbors know you, it doesn't matter whether they're white or black or wherever they come from, but they know who you are. When they meet your child, they will be able to identify, oh, that's so-and-so's child. If they're getting in trouble, they'll come and say, oh, your child was getting in trouble. And that's how we grew up in the community. We walked around the community knowing, I cannot do this because my auntie might say, actually, everybody was auntie.
Everyone was auntie.
But my question today, Michael, what happened to respect? You've just said children are fearless. Somebody can be fearless. But what happened to respect? Because it was a matter of respect in the past that you just did not do something to somebody.
Well, respect, especially in this country, respect has always been something, a value which the family instills. when the family is broken, where do you expect the child to be taught respect from? So when I mean broken, I don't mean that the parents are separated. The parents could still be living together in the same house, but the family is broken because there are no values being transmitted to the child. And none of these kids wake up and pick up a knife. It's a long process. Because you won't find a 6-year-old picking up a knife.
Yeah.
But you'll find a 10-year-old, you'll find a 9-year-old. Which means all through their formative years, that level of respect has not been there. They have not been taught that value of respect. So the majority of the problems come from broken families, and then our reliance on schools to teach our children manners. But that is impossible, because in an environment whereby our human rights are very important, even the child's human rights are very important. Typical example is your child misbehaves in school, they're punished, and then you, as a parent, you go to fight the teachers. That happens quite often. I've had those stories within the black communities. Then what kind of values are you instilling to the child? So although we look at knife crime happens because knives are easily accessible. But the underlying problem is our children are missing out on that parental care, guidance, and there's that aspect of nurturing a child to be whatever they can be. That aspect of it has actually been removed from our lives.
There's a comment here that says, our culture values actually clash with the Western values. Does that fit in with coming from our culture values and trying to understand the Western values that we've not grown into?
No. Big problem is this. You cannot put a box in a circle hole. Right?
Say that again.
You cannot put a box in a circle hole.
Explain.
Well, explanation is very simple. Culture as well actually grows. Over time, culture changes. So as technology changes, so the Western culture is based on technology. But let us not forget, they have their own culture, which we do not partake in. They have their own culture, which we do not partake in. And they use technology alongside their culture. We are abandoning our culture for the so-called Western culture, which to me, Western culture, we partake in is only technology. We're not...
Hold on, Michael, just a quick question.
Yeah?
Are you saying we are choosing, because of course, we come here and we are asked to, understand the British values. We have to be part of the British values. Before you get a British passport, you have to study the British values.
Yes.
Are you saying that we are choosing certain cultures that we call westernized cultures, but actually are cultures that we are interested in but are not British values? Because British values are a lot to do with patience, equality and diversity, love,
that
caring.
Is exactly what I'm saying.
But are we choosing something?
That's why I say we're choosing the technological side. So we're actually denying our own culture, but we're not choosing their culture. We're picking and choosing what we want. In other words, I would say we're just confused. We're just plain confused because we're picking and choosing what we want to pick and choose, but we're not partaking of the British culture.
Are we then confusing our children?
Of course we are. And where else do you think your child feels more comfortable talking to someone from their own peer group than to you?
Wow. Parents out there, we've got a parent here who's grown up in the diaspora. You came here when you were 16?
16 going on 17.
I won't ask your age, that will be okay. But Michael has been here for a very long time. He came here as a very young person. He's got children, and he is trying to identify things that are happening in the diaspora at this moment in time. We've had a few recaps, but he's just mentioned that we are choosing certain aspects of the Western culture and ignoring the British values that are very, very suitable and actually fit in with our own cultures. Respect, patience, love, sharing, all these things are part of British values. But the problem is, at the end of the day, we are choosing the wrong things. In the long run, we are confusing our children and actually being of the part of the journey that pushes them down the drain of poor mental health and well-being, knife crime, gang lifestyles. He's just mentioned that if we do not create time for our children, if we do not create values in the family, if we don't, try and give as much time as we can to our children will then find people who can give them time. They become part of another family. We all know that children in a gang call themselves blood. Blood is like brother. And they'll find a brother or a sister. And these days, gangs are going to another level where somebody says, well, you're going to have to stab somebody before you join our gang. And by the time you know it, a knife is missing in the kitchen. An important question asked to me today, do you know how many knives are in your kitchen? I actually don't know. How many moms count knives in their kitchen? So it all starts at home, like our Christine is saying, that it all starts at home. There's a lot of things that we've gone through today that are really, really, really important. Michael, what sort of advice would you give young people out there who had probably joined a gang or had gone the wrong path, but they have not ended up in prison yet? Some of them have a lot of cautions, community services. Of course, their parents are running up and down saying, I cannot manage this child anymore. They're seeking support. What sort of advice would you give this young person? Because I want to think that in your journey of coming here at 16, there are some times you made mistakes, but you've managed to pull yourself back, and you're a mechanic engineer? What you?
IT.
You're an IT, you're an engineer in IT. So there's sometimes when you slid down that wrong path, but you managed to pull yourself down. What sort of advice would you give a young person there who is not yet in mental health services, Holloway Prison, Pentonville Prison, Manchester Prison, but they're on the street behaving in a way that is going to lead them down the wrong path? How can you, grab them back?
That's a very, very hard question to answer. Because even within my own peer group, not all of us survived. So I think what prevents me personally from, or what always draws me back, are those initial values which were instilled in me growing up, which I find hard to dispose of. So you still call someone who's older than you, you still show them that respect. Okay. You still call them Sao Mum just because they're older than you. So those values were well instilled in us before we came here. That sometimes when you stray off the right track, I wouldn't call it stray off the right track, when you live a little, you do realize that the path you're taking is maybe not suitable. Okay. And I'm lucky enough to have been taught that sometimes you can pull yourself back. And also, I'm lucky enough to have a very large family. So that in itself they've also helped. Because sometimes they'll talk to you and you may know whatever they say, but 2 or 3 weeks or even 2 or 3 months down the line, it will pop up in your mind and you'll think about, oh, auntie this told me this, or auntie that told me that. And then you will try and redress that because you value what they say. Okay. So it all again returns to values, because you value what they tell you. You may think about it a few months down the line and think, oh, you know what, maybe I should change. I mean, a typical example, I'll share this. My late uncle found me in Brixton. I was walking with a can of beer. And we do it every day, walk with beer cans, summertime. So he called me to his house and he told me, if my sister saw you drinking, walking down the streets with a can of beer in your hands, do you realize she would start crying? I was like, oh, that's not the reason why I drink. I'm thirsty and I'm old enough to drink. And I was like, well, you know what, if you want to drink, go to the kitchen. So he bought a crate of super tenants,
With that beer.
Yeah, and a crate of Super Kestrel. So, son, anytime you want to drink, come and drink. Oh boy, drinking in the house is not a very good thing. We're used to drinking on the streets. So I bought a Tango bottle. And then every time I bought a drink, I poured my beer into the Tango bottle and walked down the streets drinking
beer. So you became
beer
clever.
In a Tango bottle. But you say I became clever, but I look at the values I had, respecting what he said. So surely if my mom knew that I've sent this child to study in the UK and is walking up and down in the streets drinking beer, it's not a very good look. So I picked up on what my uncle said, and because I have those respectful values, didn't stop me drinking, but I found another way to drink. Without shaming the family.
Wow. So for those who've just joined us, welcome Helen Middlehurst, Laura Savelle. Hello. We're just talking about culture values, growing up in the diaspora, mental health and well-being, gang lifestyle, knives and crime. And hello, Bright, welcome. Michael just mentioned something really important. We are very stuck on values, culture values. They could be British values. There could be a culture from where you come from. Respect. What's happened to respect? Michael just gave us an example where his uncle found him drinking and he actually swapped the alcohol into a Tango bottle, not necessarily because he was hiding the fact that he's drinking, but at least people on the street could not call him an addict, just drinking cans of beer, every day. They thought he was drinking a drink, which is Tango, but actually it was alcohol in that bottle. He mentioned something to do with social inclusion, family, involving your family, society, community, people around you. He's talked a lot about children who want to find a sense of belonging, and then they go into gang lifestyle and knife crime. Unfortunately, the majority of those children end up in prison or in mental health services. And, sadly, these children do commit suicide, some of them in prison, some of them in hospitals. And I know somebody said to me, but Nance, how can somebody commit suicide in hospitals? It happens. No professional wants it on their watch. But actually they can commit suicide because what they're going through is that massive, they cannot understand it, they can't comprehend it, and they just end their lives. So on this mental health awareness show, we come to speak about issues that affect the community and how we can support the community understand mental illness better, and how we can understand the system that our children are growing into to help them even grow up into better adults. But actually the answer is not very far. We don't even have to take them back to where we come from, to Africa, for them to understand the British values link into our cultural values. And if only we had certain values in our households. It doesn't matter whether you're a single parent or you are married. Michael just mentioned that a lot of families, people are living together, husband and wife, but you don't even know when your wife leaves or comes home because you're running from shift to shift and she's running from shift to shift, and the children are in the middle. And once the children are in the middle, they try to find friends who are going to parent them. Michael, we've had an hour of this show, really interesting and lovely to have you, and thanks for honoring our invite as Mind, Body and Soul. What message do you have either to the young people in the diaspora or to families out there in terms of mental health and well-being? Suicide prevention is my big thing.
I think for young people, I think the message has to focus more or less on young people. Something you said earlier on, sharing is caring. I think that's maybe a theme that they have to work on to start caring about their fellow young people as well. Look at their fellow youngsters as their own peer groups and care for them more. And if you can start building that care within them, because these kids are self-parenting. So the least we can do, if we parents are not going to be parents to our children, is encourage the kids to care about each other.
Okay.
And then maybe that will lessen the need to stab a friend or stab, because like I said, kids are fearless. they'll stab you for no reason, for something very minor.
Wow.
So if we can then encourage our children to like start caring about each other, because we know that, like you say, blood, a gang. To join a gang, you need to do something. You need to spill a little bit of blood, so that you're now tied with us. You don't just walk in and walk out. You need to do something which ties you to the gang. Just like a family, you're born into the family. You cannot walk away. You can walk away, but you still be part of that family. Same with a gang. Once you commit a crime, which draws blood, you then cannot walk away.
Wow.
Well, you can walk away.
What are the consequences of walking away? What if I want to change? I don't want to be part of this gang anymore. I'm a new person. I found myself. What are the consequences?
The biggest problem with gangs are people go into it for innocent reasons. And we called it cliques in our time because we never had bad intentions. But with the current gangs, you have people in the shadows pulling the strings who have bad intentions. So when you have people with bad intentions, it's not really very easy to get away.
I need to understand this. Who are the people in the shadows? What do you mean, people in the shadows pulling strings?
In our case, we were just friends. Became a clique, group of friends. With the current gangs right now, you need to do something to fit into the gang. And I think they have a hierarchy.
Okay. Like a leadership triangle,
Yeah,
you mean?
there's a hierarchy. There's someone up there who maybe who's... So at every stage, you have different levels. Now, in anything like that, in a household, you have the father, the mother, at the top of the chain. Then the kids. Aunties and uncles may be floating around, but in a gang, the structure is more like a pyramid. So the guy at the top relies on you to be his foundation.
Okay.
So he cannot let you go, because if he lets you go, his foundation collapses.
Wow.
So it's almost like entrapment. You go in there looking for what your family cannot give you, and then the people in the background dig their claws into you, and they're really holding to you tight.
Wow. That's quite scary. Is this why we hear sometimes somebody's been stabbed in a certain area, then 2 days after another one gets stabbed in the same area? Is that sort of...
Well, that plays a role as well. And it's... You're already confused as it is when you join. So the values in the gangs are not the right kind of values. And that's why I said maybe we should teach our children to care about each other. If we fail to teach them any values at home, the least we can do is teach them, when you go out there, care for each other.
Wow.
Because the values they get from the gangs, they're totally different. So anything happens to my family, I'm going to go and repay it. And then it becomes a vicious cycle of violence. Whereas if you show a little bit of care, sit down, have a chat, or better still, and the biggest problem we have is also social media. We don't know how to use social media. Our kids are experts. And they're having lots of problems within social media. And this goes out to all parents now, black, white, because technology is for the new generation. And they're experiencing issues, online bullying, for example, cyberbullying, which we do not have any idea about. So the best thing for kids is try and show a little bit of care to your fellow children as well.
Right. Thank you very much, Michael. We've had Kape Michael Okello. He's an IT engineer in the UK. He arrived in the UK when he was 16 years of age, and he's now an adult. I won't be saying his age, but he's been here for a very long time. An interesting thing about Kape is that he's been here for a very long time, but speaks his local dialect. He's very well identified where he comes from in Gulu, and he's interestingly told us a few things that we can go through as parents parenting in the diaspora. He's highlighted value, respect, social inclusion, and being mindful of social media and what happens on social media. A lot of things these days happen. He mentioned online bullying or cyberbullying, you called it cyberbullying. But we also just realized in psychiatry that there is groups at the moment that create suicide pacts with people. So when you go to that website and you're feeling depressed and you're feeling low, you can actually learn methods of committing suicide, and your children can Google these things and find these things out. So parents out there, be very, very mindful of children coming home and straight going into their bedroom and they're on their phone and they're not engaging with you or interacting with you. That is not a character that you want in the house, because they could be actually speaking to somebody about things like that. We recently, last year, we had a death of somebody. I won't mention the city, but we had a death of somebody who was actually on social media working out how they're going to take their own life, and they did. And the mom actually thought she's in the bathroom having a bath, but she had lacerated an artery and she was bleeding to death, and she was found dead, a very young lady of 19 years of age. So we need to be mindful of what social media brings to us. A massive thank you once again to our special guest this afternoon. I know that we've done our show at 12 o'clock. It's normally at 6 p.m., but it was a bit early today, but it was worth it. I liked it. Mind, Body and Team family, just to remind you that we've got fundraising going on at the moment for our March charity. We've got our March charity event. We are hitting all the schools. We are hitting about 30 schools in Uganda to do mental health awareness for a whole week. And we've got a grand finale of rugby with Chisubi University. It is for using physical health to improve mental health and well-being. But we are hitting the young population because they are the majority, and we want them to take it out there, because once you start from the grassroots, the stem will be great, the flowers will be brilliant, and the fruits will be lovely. And by the time these children become the fruits, they will know everything about mental health and well-being. And this is what we need. This is what we need to do. So if you see my fundraising back at Mind, Body and Soul, please do not fail to support it. I'm running St. Helens 10K on the 1st of March. I'll be running the 10K and I've been practicing. So please, when I hit you for any money, anything, every little helps. Please give us a shout. Please support us. Secondly, February is a month of relationships. We will be talking about relationships. February is we've got Valentine's Day. It's a month for love. So we'll be talking about relationships. So look out for our shows. I'll have some guest speakers, people who have been in relationships for a very long time and will be giving us some advice. People who have been there, tried it and it has failed, they found love again. And all these things we'll talk about. But most importantly, we'll talk about psychological abuse in relationships, domestic violence, how to spot signs of abuse and control in relationships. Ladies and gentlemen, thanks for being with us today. Justine Nakimuli Kigozi, mental health awareness on Mind, Body and Soul. And a massive thanks to Mike Capet for joining us today. Bye-bye.